Hello and welcome to the Photo Brigade Podcast. I'm Robert Caplin. Today I'm with Vanessa Joy. How are you, Vanessa?
I'm doing pretty good.
Awesome.
Sun is shining. I'm happy.
The sun is shining, although you can't see it in here. We got everything closed down. But so Vanessa is an acclaimed wedding photographer based here in New York and New Jersey, although you're based in New Jersey. But
in New Jersey.
But you're in the, tri-state area is what they say.
That's what I say.
Yeah, that's what you say. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to Adorama. Thank you for letting us, as always, use your event space to record these podcasts and also to host our live events. Check us out on our Facebook, Photo Brigade Facebook. Also, thank you for tuning in here on Facebook Live and on Adorama TV. Feel free to ask questions through the YouTube chat on Adorama TV or in the comments below for Facebook. So anyhow, Vanessa, let's get to our conversation. So I'm going to start going through some of your photos as you talk, but
okay.
The basics are we always want to talk about your background, how you got into the world of photography, and then sort of your business mind and marketing and everything. And that's something that you talk about also, because you're not just a photographer. You also do education work through your own channels as well as now Adorama TV.
I do. I do. You can check us out.
So, and where can we check you out?
Well, Breathe Your Passion is the Adorama TV channel show playlist that we have. So a new video just dropped yesterday. Okay. And actually the series that's coming out right now, every 2 weeks, I believe, it's all about business and marketing.
Perfect.
All of it.
So very cross-promotional opportunity here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. So where do you come from? And how did you first start picking up a camera and getting into this awesome business of ours?
It goes way back. You know, I have one of those pictures of me when I'm 3 years old with a camera, a film camera strapped around my neck with a cute little flash that probably did nothing. But my mother was a photographer. And before that, my grandmother was actually the first woman spokesperson for the Senate in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I come from a long line of independent women, I guess.
That's great. That's great.
But my mother was a photographer, so I've been around studio photography mostly for my whole life. Naturally, when I went to high school, you got to choose an elective, and my mother happened to be sitting right there, so I chose photography. Because before that, I kind of rebelled. I'm like, she does photography. I don't want to do photography because my mom does it. So I didn't want to do it. I just begrudgingly helped her plug in lights, when she needed. So I started it in high school, and the high school photography teacher that I had was incredible. He not only taught me photography, but he made me fall in love with it, and I fell in love with it in the darkroom.
Same here. I have the same story with high school and photography.
It's amazing.
Did you work for any like the yearbook or newspaper or anything like that?
Ironically, I didn't. I just ended up by senior year cutting almost every class I had just to stay in the darkroom because I didn't want to leave.
I got in trouble for cutting class and sneaking into the darkroom. That's how I got into the photography class.
That's hysterical. I did
Finally
hear
got
that.
busted.
Yeah. Well, I snuck in, and my photography teacher gave me a note, and then after a while, my other teachers were like, "Come on, Vanessa, this note is not good enough anymore."
Right.
They yelled at him and.
Well, the thing that drove me crazy is that people took it as just an elective so that they didn't have to do schoolwork or something. They didn't really care about the craft of it.
So true.
Right? And then there's people like us that actually want into a class like this because we are into it. Yeah, absolutely.
And then on top of it, that photography teacher was a weekend warrior, and he photographed weddings on the weekends.
Oh, did he? Okay.
So I worked for him out of college. And in college, I took photography in college as one of my majors, and I would come back. I didn't like the darkroom setup. I would come back to my high school and like mat stuff there too. So
nice.
I just never left and then fell in love with it. Worked for him for 5 years and then eventually went out on my own.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that transition from. Well, so did you have any actual formal training in photography other than high school?
I have a college degree in photography.
Okay. So what school did you go to? And
Monmouth University.
Okay.
I will say, and not a dig at Monmouth, I learned absolutely nothing. Nothing that I apply right now at all.
Well, that was a raging endorsement right there.
Yeah, I don't like college. I think it's such a waste of time, at least for our profession.
Right. Well, I mean, that's true. And I agree to an extent because especially if you're going to school for especially if you've already have the technical skill, you know. I think the most important thing you can learn out of college, and maybe they didn't even teach it, is the business aspect and the marketing aspect.
They didn't even touch it.
Yeah, because you can take these classes and learn how to take a picture, but if you don't know how to be a good business person,
it's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant.
Well, not irrelevant. I mean, you can be a hobbyist, but you're not going to put food on your table.
Yeah, that's true. So you went to school, and then out of college is when you started actually shooting. You were assisting your former high school teacher.
Yes.
High school photo teacher.
I was.
Okay.
And in between all of that, I actually thought I had to get a real job, especially since my example was this man was a photography teacher during the day and then, shot on the weekends. So I thought, well, got to go to college. And yeah, I took photography as a major, but now I need a real job.
Right.
So I became a Spanish teacher.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I did. And, I decided to start my own business at the same time. Again, kind of mimicking him and the lifestyle. I just thought being a photographer was fun. I didn't think you can make money off of it, actually.
Right.
And it's scary, too, just to have that kind of relying on income thing. So I got a real job, and I taught Spanish, and I had to actually quit before I could even be up for tenure. And I left them in the middle of the year. They were not happy with me. That's like a big no-no, is a teacher leaving in the middle of the year. But I had weddings that spring, and I couldn't do it anymore.
So I'm curious. So you knew Spanish already, obviously.
No? No, for fun. I like to learn languages for fun.
So you learned it to take this job, or did you learn it?
Well, I learned it in school.
You learned it in school, right? So in college, okay. How much would you say that knowing Spanish has come in handy in your business?
It does.
It does. I mean, have you shot
Spanish weddings and everything, which I can speak Portuguese as well. And understand a bit of Italian, which was helpful a couple of weekends ago.
Well, that's extremely important. It opens up your potential, base of income, right?
Yeah. Plus, it's just fun.
Yeah. By the way, so we're looking at some of these photos, and sometimes, I shoot weddings from time to time. I'm not a professional. I'm a professional wedding photographer, and then I get paid to shoot weddings from time to time.
Right.
But it's these types of shots that I overlook, these details of different items and so on. And when looking through your photos and just pulling some for this slideshow, that was one of the things I really noticed. And these are all very beautiful. I'm curious, what do you usually shoot these with? Like, is this a macro lens that you use?
That's a macro lens. It was probably the Canon 100 2.8. Macro.
I just picked up that lens, by the way, and I love it.
Lovely.
Used it for the first time for photo shoot, and I was shooting tiki drinks at a tiki bar, actually.
Nice. Well, it's nice because it's good for macro, but it's a great portrait lens also.
Yeah, it is a great portrait lens.
Purpose.
Definitely.
I mean, I shoot that kind of stuff because I have to for marketing.
Sure.
So my clients love it. It does go into the album, does add pages in there, but if I want my stuff to get published in blogs and magazines, that's what they want to see.
So how important is, you mentioned the blogs and magazines. So when you shoot a wedding, your goal, I guess what is your marketing technique? I see a lot of wedding photographers post photos from the wedding onto their photography page, and that way their their clients get tagged, right?
Right.
And then that's word of mouth, right? I guess
it is.
Is that one of you? What do you think is the best marketing technique for you these days?
Right now, it's Instagram.
Instagram, okay.
And that's because my clientele, brides, grooms, usually are between the ages of 24 and 34, let's just say, and they're all on Instagram right now. So you have to know where your demographic is.
Absolutely.
And I'm very Instagram heavy. So if you go to my Instagram, you'll notice everything is tagged and hashtagged to death, and tagged in the description as well. And I get a good amount of not just leads, but bookings straight from Instagram.
Yeah, because I think I saw on your description of Instagram, it's like check your wedding dates right now.
Yep.
That's cool. When did you first get your website in order to start the wedding photography? Did it start with a website, or did it? It did. It did start with a website.
It did. It actually started, and this was a pain point with the photographer that I worked with. I mean, we're going back to like websites. Oh, should we have a website? Should we not have a website? I had to convince this guy in screaming matches over the course of probably like 3 months that he needed a website. He needed one. So in the course of me finding a way to get him a website, which was not easy back then, no one had any idea how to do it. It's like, oh, should I try Dreamweaver? That was not a good idea. Anyway, I found Show It sites, which I still use today. And I made it then, and I made it when I knew I was going to start my photography business. And I made mistakes with that because I was second shooting, and I thought because I photographed those pictures and they should be mine to use in my portfolio, but that is not the case because I shot them for him. And yeah, so I made a lot of mistakes when I started.
It's an interesting thing, some of those gray areas, because it's like, I know that there's sports photographers that also assist. For instance, photographers that are Sports Illustrated photographers, let's say, or high-end photographers where they have assistants on the sidelines or working remote cameras, and they're actually the ones triggering these things. And it's their creative eye making these images.
But it's not theirs, not according to copyright. Copyright laws. Yep.
All right.
So,
well,
luckily he let me use some of my images.
Well, that was nice. That was sure nice of him.
It was.
Or
it was.
Him, yeah. Well, you guys go way back, right?
We do go way back.
To high school.
To high school. We won't say how far that is.
Right. Okay. What is I saw on Instagram stories today, you said that you were going to talk about something on this podcast.
I did.
Is that something that we can talk about, or do we need to reference a particular?
We can talk about it. Well, you can reference any one of those off-camera flash images that are somewhere in this portfolio.
Okay. Well, we'll get to them for sure. These are all very beautiful too, and I think what I really notice about what you do so well is you really capture the scene. It's not just about the people in it, but it's about the beautiful locations that they are. Is that something that you scout out usually in advance, or is it just sort of on the fly? You're looking around when you're taking these portraits?
Well, the locations themselves, that's something that we discuss with the bride and groom. Sometimes they have places that they want to go. Sometimes they need me to make suggestions. But I don't do site visits. If I do, I charge for them because that's time.
Extra time, sure.
It's extra time. But it's so unnecessary because, the light's going to be different that day, even if I go on the same day 1 year earlier.
Right.
It's going to be
And
different.
you're professional enough. You know that you're going to...
Exactly. I mean, as photographers, that's one of the things you need to know how to do. Walk into a room, size it up in 6 seconds, and figure out where you're going to take the picture.
Question. I noticed in a handful of these, you've got the
I
veil
have really
going.
good assistants.
I was going to say, that's an assistant thing, right? They
yes.
pop it up and they run out of the frame.
That's exactly what they do. And usually I have to crop because you see them in the background like, oh, gotta get out.
I bet you could make a fun series just on your assistants, like
I probably could.
doing that kind of fun stuff. And I do notice that you shoot a lot of natural light, a lot of shallow depth of field. So it makes it easier to sort of run around and not have to worry about the extra flash and
right. Although a lot of these photos, some you'll think are natural light, but they're not.
You'll just be filling a little bit.
I'll either fill or I'll create golden hour when it's pouring rain outside.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. The Pro Photo system, and actually can kind of go into my little comment that I promised I'd talk about.
Yeah.
It goes back to fear and learning how to do new things, because as a wedding photographer, I think a lot of us are lazy because we have to be a jack of all trades. So that sounds like I'm not saying you're lazy, but in fact you actually kind of are, because you just get to that mediocre level where you can do your job. And then I don't see very many people pushing themselves past that. Natural light photographers, exactly. Perfect example. I shoot natural light. Well, why? Because you don't know how to use off-camera flash, because you don't want to. And that was where I was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. And I wanted to learn off-camera flash, and I wanted to be able to do it in a way that was helpful to my brand, not necessarily the exact opposite, but I needed to learn it, and I was scared to learn it. But thankfully, a friend of mine, Sal Sincata, some of you guys may know, I mentioned that I was jealous of some of his off-camera flash pictures. If you know Sal, he does not beat around the bush, and he kind of just said, bleep it, Vanessa, just get out there and bleeping do something about it. Like, why are you complaining? So I did, and thankfully Pro Photo's so easy to use. I use Pro Photo systems.
So what do you typically bring on a shoot? Do you use the smallest units now?
I use the A1, the B1, and the B2, and I bring all of them.
Oh, you bring all of them.
I
wow.
do, because for weddings, I'll set up, the B1 if I can be in a church, and I can put that up and let it stay there. But sometimes I'm
For
outside.
people that don't know, the B1 is the largest.
The largest one.
But it's battery powered.
It's battery powered.
Which is nice.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
All of mine are battery powered because I definitely can't rely on plugs. But so that's actually an example. I have two B1s on either side of that centerpiece right there. But then sometimes I'm outside. Oh, you know, New York City skyline, everybody wants, great, but it's super windy typically. So I need to have a B2 because my assistant needs to hold it the entire time.
Sure.
Or sometimes I just need the A1, well, because it's a great, you know, sticking it on my hot shoe, but I can run around with it really quickly. So. But anyway, I did something yesterday is where I was kind of going with this that was, I didn't mean to, and I didn't even realize I was holding on to this. You know, so many people look at me or other successful photographers, or at least in their mind, they're successful photographers, and they think, oh, they're so confident, they have it all, they've got this business, they're going great. But yesterday, I'm cleaning through my closet and just having one of those, I got to get this crap out of my closet moments, and I realized I get to the section of my closet where I have all these work pants, like dress suits and dress pants and all this stuff, and I haven't worn them in, you know, since I was a teacher. But for some reason, I kept holding on to them as if like, oh my gosh, what if I have to be a teacher again? What if I'll fail at photography and I have to get a corporate job? And it sounds so silly because I've been in this business for 9 years and I think I'm pretty good at like sustaining clientele.
Sure.
And if it's, you know, you kind of have a warning with weddings. Oh, well, I don't have any jobs booked next year. I guess I better do something about that, right? You know, you have a warning. But I was still holding on to all of my dress pants as if I needed to go pick up a real job. You know, go back to that real job that I thought I had to have, 9 to 5. But yesterday I threw them all out.
I was going to say, what'd you do? Did you burn them or something?
I feel like I should burn them, but no,
that could have been a good video for Facebook or something.
Yeah. And it's so nerve-wracking. It sounds so silly. Like,
well, sometimes there's these psychological, you know, closing the door on the past, and now you're full time. Now
officially,
because you can't go back to teaching at this point.
They don't sell dress pants anymore. So,
well, that's great. I mean, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
So that's really cool. Also, something I want to talk to you about. I was watching one of your videos earlier today. I think it was actually the first Adorama TV video you did. You mentioned you were out of the country.
Oh, I was.
Can you talk a little bit about, you know, your philosophy and that, you know, wanting to get out and do things and travel and
So I already told you I love learning languages, and one of the other things I love is learning how to run a business like a business person, not just a photographer. So I had picked up the book by Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Workweek. I guess that was probably like 4 years ago, and I fell in love with it. I changed my whole business to run the way that he had it outlined in there. And it's amazing. Right now, my photography business, my wedding photography business, I work maybe 4 hours a week, maybe. And because of that book, if I'm shooting a wedding, that's obviously different. That's a 12-hour wedding day.
Right.
But his whole point in that 4-hour work week is, why wait till the end of your life to start enjoying it? Why should you, you know, work just to retire for 20 years and you can't even walk around the places you've wanted to travel to? So he suggests doing these mini retirements that are 3 months long. I didn't do 3 months, but I did do 6 weeks. And we went to Brazil. Took my 1-year-old daughter. It was actually her 1-year-old birthday when we landed in Brazil, and we spent 6 weeks in Brazil, and I learned the language, and I did photography stuff, and I was filming those Adorama videos, and that was like the best thing.
That's awesome.
Ever.
Amazing.
And I need to do it again. I just have to figure out how to get this education thing to only 4 hours a week.
Yeah.
'Cause I do a lot of that now.
Right. Well, I mean, that's another interesting part of it, as we as photographers sort of broaden our business plan so that we're not, not just doing photography. Look at me, I'm doing podcasts and other things as well outside of photography. But that also takes some time as well, which then takes time away from not only photography, but also say, family time or travel time or doing these little mini retirements. So I think that's great that you, are you continuing to do it? Have you been doing it since then?
I did not do it since then. I did have another baby, so that does put a little damper on things.
Babies.
But to be honest, it's in the works to go somewhere else.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I hope that it's somewhere very exciting.
Yeah. I am excited.
So, okay, let's look through more of your photos here. And then I want to, I guess, talk about, okay, so here's my thing with weddings, right? They are very repetitive. right?
They can be.
They can be. Obviously, it looks, as from the looks of your photos that we're going through, you are going to some pretty cool places, getting to see some pretty cool things, and you're keeping things creatively new. You know, that you're playing with light here, obviously. You know, you're making a rainy day which could possibly be a really crappy photo and ruin the portraits. Unless you produced this rain. Did you produce this rain?
I did not produce that rain, though. That's not a silly question. I've seen photographers that produce the rain.
Let's see here. Felicia on Facebook was asking, what's the name of the book? That was 4 Hour Work Week.
That's it. Tim Ferriss, 4 Hour Work Week. He has a podcast also. I don't particularly like the podcast, to be honest, but the book is good.
You're full of great endorsements.
I know. I'm honest.
Today.
I'm sorry.
That's great. Yeah. His book's great. So check out the book. Okay. So where I was going with this was, do you get overwhelmed with shooting so many weddings? Because I can imagine it can get very tedious. Like just doing a couple a year for me can, like, it's a bit stressful, you know, because it's a very important day for people. You can't screw it up.
There's
also,
no reshoot.
There's no reshoot. There's also a big payday out of it. It's not like shooting a small, quick little something. It's, you know, this is how you make your living. And if you screw it up somehow, you could lose out on that.
Very much so.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm glad you didn't talk about weddings. I was scared you were going to say that they're the lowest form of photography art, which I get a lot.
No. I'm out of here. Just walk out right now. No, that's not what I meant.
You know, wedding photographers and videographers, they were not considered very high in the ranks of the industry, but I think that started to change a little bit.
And to me, I've always stressed, you know, I come from a photojournalism background, working for newspapers, magazines, and so on, and for me, you know, some people are so caught up and snooty about what they do that the idea of a wedding is just like under them somehow. But for me, I think that it's important because you can take your skill set, you know, whatever that is, photojournalistic or more lighting or this, that, or the other, and bring it to a wedding, and that's practice, and it gives you income to be able to do the type of work that you want to do rather than getting paid peanuts, whatever.
Well, I don't get paid peanuts, thankfully. And I have to say, I do like photographing weddings. When
I say getting paid peanuts,
I mean I know.
Journalists.
Well, I understand that. Now, you know, photographing weddings, it's unique because as much as they are very repetitive and they're laid out the same way, a lot of times they are different and they're all unique. And I have to, with my clients, make them feel that, and then I have to believe it for myself too. Otherwise, I will shoot every single one the same way, and I just, you know, can't wait to get this veil in the door and then out again, you know? So it's difficult, and a lot of wedding photographers, they experience burnout. I don't know how many people are listening right now, but if you've experienced burnout, please raise your hand. You're not alone. I'm not alone. Tell me you're not alone, right?
I have felt burnout before.
It's hard. It's hard to fight because we have to be creative on demand. And creative on demand with people who are drunk sometimes, or fighting with their mother-in-law that day, or just really pissed off that the makeup artist didn't do a good job and they washed their entire face, or these are all things that have happened.
Sure.
Like, you know, it's very hard to be creative when you have people that just aren't into it either. And that's another factor. But one thing I started to do, and, you know, with off-camera flash, I did it at one point because I was feeling not only burnout, but feeling like I really stink as a photographer. So I need to do something about this. But now I'm trying to do it again and trying to take concepts that I've seen used outside of wedding photography and bring them into wedding photography. One of them is posing. I'm trying to look at more fashion stuff, fashion magazines, and look how things are posed, you know, in Vogue, and I don't know, kind of more of a runway attitude. And now I tried doing something with multiple exposures that actually I just did.
I'm gonna take down this for 1 second, Seth, so I can get to that last photo so we can talk about that, because that is such a cool photo.
Thank you.
All right.
So this is from actually just last weekend, and I still second shoot very rarely, but I will work for some other companies, people that are friends. And I asked Janet Lanza, is her name. She's been in the business, I think, 40 years.
Wow.
And, you know, she's so incredible. Anyone who's been in the photography business that long and is still making a sustainable business and living, you know, for themselves out of this, I just have so much respect for. But I asked her, I was like, can I try something, you know, to do? And I had seen this concept through an ebook. His name is Carlston. Oh, I should probably look that up. I'm going to look that up and get back to you, because
Okay.
I read this guy's ebook, and he showed me how to do this. So I read it, and then I tried it, and this is almost straight out of camera, this image. I cleaned up a little bit of the silhouette, but this is 10 to 12 in camera multiple exposures.
Did you have this in mind, like this exact, I guess, exposure in mind before you did it, or you just started playing around with it?
No, I played around with it. So the picture of the two of them I shot earlier in the day, because they did a first look. That's a Pro Photo A1 with a blue gel. Actually, no, I didn't even have a CTO gel or a CTB gel on it. I just cooled down my temperature.
Okay.
And I took that one. And then during the ceremony, the big lights that are at the top, those are actually the lights that were in the church. So during the ceremony, I kind of went up on the balcony, and I don't know, they were doing something that I had time to do.
So each one of these are like separate exposures. Oh, wow.
And then later during the reception is where you see all the orange bokeh, and there were some chandeliers.
So it tells a story of the day as well.
The whole day is actually in there.
That's really, really creative.
Thank you.
And also neat that you've done that through the camera for them. I mean, for the most part, obviously there's, some
little cleanup,
little post, but yeah, I mean, that's hard for me to even conceive of a double exposure, nevertheless. But I've never done it on a digital. So can you actually see what the
You
previous...
can, and it's nice because I have done
you
it
can
with
then
film.
kind of layer it.
But you see where the layers are.
Oh, that's
so
really
you
cool.
can do up to 9 exposures, I think. I have the Canon 1DX Mark II. And then from that one photo, but then you can use that as a photo in your next set of multiple exposures. So I lost count, but it was somewhere like 10 to 12.
Right.
It was a lot. It took a lot. Let me find this guy's name, because I have to give him props.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the fact that he wrote this ebook. Karsten, this is why I couldn't remember his name, is Karsten Schertzer.
Karsten
Schertzer. But he wrote an ebook. I don't even think it's out yet. I will definitely post when it is, because I was able to read it. He explained it so well.
Well, that's another one of the things, is that you are a big reader, right? So,
I am.
So
or audiobooks. A lot of audiobooks.
I'm a big Audible guy myself, or at least used to be. Now I'm more a podcast. It's like I don't have enough time in the day.
No.
I just had a kid recently too, so it's
congrats.
then the books, the reading, and
it's impossible.
I try to multitask everything though, but
yeah.
So, okay. This is also a beautiful image.
Thank you. That's
Very
the Pro
nice.
Photo A1. That does have a gel on it in the back.
So you lit that in the back. And, okay.
Yeah, because that was broad daylight, that shot.
How key are assistants in these situations, especially when you're lugging around, putting these, flapping their veils and all this kind of stuff?
They do so much more than just hold veils.
Yeah.
I have one on every single job,
Yeah.
every single one. I think they're so key. Even if you're not doing crazy things like throwing veils and off-camera flash and all this stuff, you are getting paid to hold a camera in your hand. Don't you think you should not put it down? Just
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be looking for my lens caps. I shouldn't be packing my bag or going to the next location to set up lights if I can instead just hold a camera, because that's where I'm most valuable, holding my camera. And that's a selling point I tell my clients is, hey, I have an assistant. It's no charge to you. I mean, yeah, it's worked into the package, but...
No, it was charged to you.
Right, it was charged to you. But I have a second photographer plus an assistant, so they're not the same person. They're separate
okay.
people.
So you have a team of 3 for all of your shoots. Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And
when
it's
did
huge.
you realize? Did you start off that way, or did you realize, like, going through, like, I could use another hand?
I really don't want to find my lens caps again today. No, I think it was when I started off-camera flash is when I said I need an assistant, need an extra set of hands. And then also when I started doing same-day edits the night of the wedding, I realized...
Same-day edits. So,
yeah.
meaning you'd give it to him the next day, or
No.
at the reception?
At the reception.
You do a slideshow.
Oh, I do an album.
Holy
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, and it's gotten a lot easier when I'm a 4x6 self-mount book.
Sure.
So I was print out 4x6 pictures and stick them into the book. Then I switched over to using a Fuji Instax printer and kind of threw, like, I have it on my computer, then put it to my phone, and the phone prints it out. And now I use the Canon Ivy printer that just came out. It's like $120, this tiny little thing. I print out these pictures and hand them a little book with it, and they are floored.
Wow.
Floored.
Wow.
And it's so much fun to do. I don't tell them it's coming because sometimes I don't have time.
Right.
Sometimes I forget paper. Sometimes
sometimes something,
something silly
you don't want to set
happens.
up a liability there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just a surprise. I do a slideshow as well, but That's what's more fun because it's small enough. They stick it in their purse. They bring it on their honeymoon. They bring it to work. They show everyone.
And then it's not such a, rush to get everything on the back end, because sometimes it, obviously
it holds them off.
It holds them off a little bit and gives them something. That's great. And have you, do you do video, offer video services too, or is it strictly stills?
I just do photography. But if my husband is behaving, I recommend him. He does.
Oh, so he does video work.
He does wedding and corporate video.
Oh, okay, cool.
And he is one of the best. Actually, his Adorama TV series will be piloting.
Oh, really?
Later, either this month or next.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's
wow.
called Video Village.
Video Village.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
Little plug for the Addo TV.
That's right.
Addo TV family, literally. Right?
Literally.
Wow. Okay.
I'm lucky to have a production house in-house.
Yeah. Well, when you, I married a graphic designer, and so we do albums, we do books, we do web design, all sorts of stuff whenever I need something.
That's
I
good.
got it right there.
Keep it all in the family. Well, usually that means nothing gets done, actually, for myself, but.
Right. Okay, so let's transition into what you do outside of strictly wedding photography, which is the education, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When did you start doing that? And then sort of what was the path into what you do now for Adorama TV?
So I mentioned I was a teacher.
Right.
Right. So I have an education background. That's what my bachelor's is in. And I was going to WPVI, and this is not a WPVI dig, although I'm doing really good at digging at people today, but I had gone to a class, and I'm sitting in the audience, and I'm trying to learn, I think it was off-camera flash. And this is one of the reasons I now teach off-camera flash.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't understand a thing he was saying.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember who it was, thankfully, because then I'd probably say their name. But I'm sitting in the class just thinking, this is an incredible photographer, but he has no idea how to teach a concept. No clue. And I mean, that's what I spent 4 years learning how to do, is how to teach something. So I thought to myself, I can do this. I can teach. I can teach. I know I can teach. So why can't I teach photography? And I mentioned it to a friend of mine, Stacey Evans, who used to work for Renaissance Albums, actually. And she was part of a local PPA group back when they were popular. By popular, I mean they were full of old men, and I was the only woman in the group.
So you were popular.
Well, I hope. It's the only reason they have me teach. Anyway, but she got me in to teach one of the local chapters, and then from there I taught at state, and then from there it kept growing, and I found that I had this knack for being able to teach photography concepts very easily, and especially complicated ones. And that pisses people off sometimes, because I will teach inverse square law in a way that makes people very angry because it's not technical, and it's a little bit wrong, but I'm making people understand it in a way that they never would have had they heard it from, another source. And same thing with off-camera flash. I teach off-camera flash scares me, or off-camera flash for dummies, I guess. And my whole goal is teaching it from a natural light perspective so that it makes sense without all the lingo, without all the vocab, and just making it obtainable for people. And
did you feel the teaching experience beforehand helped with this new, I guess, venture?
Yeah, definitely. Because I teach the same way I was taught. So ironically, my photography degree gave me absolutely nothing, but my teaching degree I now still use.
See, that's the thing. Is you never know what might be the thing that's teaching you, even though you needed to get out of it so that you could become a photographer.
Right.
Yeah. So that's cool.
And now here I am again. But I love it. I love to teach.
Okay. And so what was it? You started getting feedback that people were understanding photography more? Is that what inspired you to continue doing it?
I just liked it.
You just liked it.
Yeah. And it kept working. And I was teaching with my husband at the time. We used to actually teach photographers how to shoot video and teach Fusion, it was called. It had a little bit of a heyday where people wanted to combine photo and video into one product or one deliverable. So we taught that, and just grew from there. He doesn't do it as much as I do anymore.
And then it started. So did it start on? When did you started your online presence as well? Was that after you started teaching, or was that what you used to start the teaching? Was it all online? Was it how was it?
Most of it was in person.
In person,
because there was no Creative Live at that point.
Right.
It was probably 2008, 2009. Maybe there was a Creative Live, but not a popular one. I'm not sure when they started.
Not the same thing, yeah.
Right. So it was all in person, all at the conventions, and it just grew from there. Yeah. So
companies would hire you to do some of this education stuff at these different conventions.
Yeah, mostly through PPA.
Okay. Oh,
they
through
have
PPA, yeah.
So PBA has regional groups, and they meet once a month. Maybe they have
and
a
PBA
yearly
is
state
Professional
convention.
Photographers of America.
Of America. No, you're right. Of America. Yeah, PBA.org. They're great. Highly recommended.
Yeah, and do they do imaging?
They do imaging.
Imaging, okay, yeah.
Which
So
I will be at this year.
Cool. I was there last year.
Nice.
I went for a different thing, but
Cool.
that was a cool. I haven't really gone to these different expos. I've only been to the
Really?
Photo Plus until last year when I was doing some
no.
stuff with
Photo
Canon.
Plus
Yeah.
is not your game. I promise. You will like so many other things, so much more. WPVI is a lot of fun. They all have their different flavor.
Didn't you just dig at them or something just a minute ago?
No. I like WPVI. WPVI is in Vegas, so it's kind of like Photographer's Spring Break. People get a little crazy.
Oh, okay.
But they are there to learn. It's a little bit different from imaging, which you went to, which probably had very full classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
They want to learn in a classroom setting or shooting setting.
Right.
And then there's Shutterfest, which is another one, and that is just crazy people.
Yeah.
That's with my friend Sal Sankata started that as like the anti-photo conference. He calls it, he doesn't want to have death by PowerPoint. It's massively shooting like crazy constantly, all hours of the day. It's held in St. Louis, so it's usually a cheap flight no matter where you live in the U.S. And that photo conference you would probably love, because it doesn't matter what hour of the day or night, you walk anywhere in that hotel and there is a photo shoot going on.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Well, that's cool.
And crazy ones too. They have like body artists that come and everything. And they have other, normal things. There's wedding and newborn and portrait and senior and families. And
cool.
A whole program called Rent a Human, which is really fun.
Rent a Human?
Rent a Human. And you, as part of the ticket, you just get to get models for free and go photograph them.
Oh, cool.
And it's called the Rent a Human program.
That's funny. Cute name.
It is, well, you're controversial, but
a little controversial,
but it's good.
Well, cool. I think that we've covered quite a bit. Is there anything that I've not hit that you were thinking that you were going to talk about?
Well, I told everyone about my clothing thing yesterday.
Your clothing thing.
So that's good.
You've thrown away your pants.
Yep.
Your work pants.
Yep. I've insulted most wedding photographers by saying they're jack of all trades and don't push themselves. So we covered that.
What else? Don't read the book of this guy, not his podcast.
We don't like Tim Ferriss's podcast. I mean, you might, but
yeah,
I didn't. ADD, I get bored.
So, okay. So where do we go to see all of your things again? Your websites, your links, your socials?
So I'm just Vanessa Joy on Instagram. That's the best place to go because that's where I'm most active. If you DM me there, I'll probably write you back at some point. You can find me, Vanessa Joy Photography, on Facebook, but just go to Instagram. That's where everyone is.
Awesome. And you can find us at Photo Brigade on all social media, thephotobrigade.com. Follow us on Facebook to see our live podcasts as we are doing right now, and also check us out on Adorama TV's YouTube. Go follow us there as well. Oh, we can see you all on Adorama TV also.
Yep, new episode yesterday. I don't remember which one. I want to say it's marketing tactics. So
cool. Yeah, marketing. That's really important. That's the most important part.
Because
you can take pictures. You don't necessarily know how to market yourself. You're not going to be doing well in the business.
Very true.
All right, Vanessa, it was a pleasure.
This microphone's so intimidating.
Yes,
this whole time.
I'm like, and we'll see you all again next time. Take care.